I guess that's good. Good enough anyway for government work or for this show.
Believe me, this show is much better than government work.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 463 of the Dead Robot Society. Paul E. Cooley here, joining me today.
Hey.
The ruffian, the irascible, the not to be imitated, thank Christ, Terry Mixon. How you doing, man?
Oh, God. You definitely don't want to imitate me. There we go. If I can only speak English.
You don't want to intimate me?
You know what? Well, you might want to, big boy.
Hey. Family show here. None of
It's
that.
never been a family show.
No, it's never been a family show.
The reason that totally discombobulated me is something that my wife said to me last night that she was trying. I don't even know what she was talking about, but if she told me that she told a bunch of her friends that if it meant that I could sell more books, that she would convince me to dress up in heels and a bustier. I said, no, I won't.
You realize you just gave the meme machine a la David Wood just absolute license to go crazy.
Why not? He goes nuts on you all the time.
Okay, I'm going to take issue with the phrasing there.
Hey, I didn't say teabagging. I said gone nuts.
Still going to take issue with it. Still going to take issue with it. All right, what the hell have you been doing with yourself? What have you done since last week?
I finished off a short story for Four Horsemen Universe for their third anthology and got it sent off to them. So that's done. I'm back on writing Behind Enemy Lines, not Behind Enemy Lines. I've already finished that book. Battle for Terra. I'm really starting to question whether or not they're actually going to get to Terra by the time this book is over. So there may be a title redo on that.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I am almost halfway done with it. I'm still targeting the end of the month to have it wrapped up. I think that I'll make that. Fingers crossed. I'll need to get off my dead butt and write some more to make that happen. But it's doable.
It's doable.
I've got an audiobook, the volume of books 1, 2, and 3 in the Empire of Bone saga, plus a short story, are in Audible's approval queue. So that will come out in a couple of weeks. That's it. That's where I've been as far as production. Sales-wise, I'm trying to, keep myself from staring at the sales numbers that I get, because I'm starting to get bleed off from the co-authored book with Glenn. I'm starting to get a butt ton of people signing up for my mailing list, like 70 people in the last 7 days. And my page reads and sales have been ranging up. I actually snuck back into the top 100 science fiction and fantasy authors on Amazon again. So yeah, this is going to be by far the most productive money-wise sales month I've ever had. And that's not even counting Glenn's book. Just my own sales are going to eclipse what my high water mark before.
Cool.
So yeah. Oh, a little black cat, little black stray out on the back porch. I think I'm going to be able to snag his little furry self at the end of the month when I can order the live trap. So feeding him and plotting his capture is the other thing that I'm doing.
Well then, aren't you special?
I think so. I'm a snowflake.
You're right. Well, I got Flames done. It's in Sue's capable hands, and hopefully she won't find anything too bad in there. So basically, while I'm waiting for that to go, I just started my part-time job yesterday. So don't really know what the effect is going to be on the writing, but I know that some house stuff has come up with black mold in my garage, so that's kind of taken a little bit of my attention away from things.
I kind of feel your pain on that. I didn't mention it, but we had water come in at the bay window during the hurricane, and we're going to be ripping out the paneling there as well. I hope we don't have any mold. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and I don't know if it started with the storm or if it's been there and it just, the storm just moved it. So I got to get those folks in there tomorrow. Anyway, besides that, I'm trying to get my guns going on destruction again. I may have to change the title of this damn book. May have to change the title.
Do it. Titles, they don't matter.
Yeah, they don't matter, says the guy who puts them in the back of the book. This to be continued in derelict destruction.
I actually took that out of my books.
Yeah, I can't do that. It's a little late.
I've taken that. I've went back to see if that's the benefit of publishing my own stuff. I could take that crap out of mine. I've stopped doing preview chapters because I didn't think that anybody was looking at them. And once I do have right now the coming next books that I'm scheduled for the rest of this year. Mm-hmm. But I think that when I'm done with that, I'm going to stop putting that in there too.
That's one of those things is really interesting. Sever Press always puts a preview chapter for another book at the end of my books, and they do that for all their books. And I actually had somebody contact me and go, "Hey, when is this other book going to be finished?" What the fuck are you talking about? The preview chapter at the end of the chapter, when is that book coming out? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not mine. And then they came back and went, "Oh, that's by another author. Never mind." Like, what? How did you not understand? Yeah, whatever.
I can sort of see that. They would expect that if they're seeing something at the back of the book that's also yours. If they were zipping by, they just finished your book and liked it. Obviously, they got to the end.
Yes,
they cared enough to read something else.
I agree. I thought it was kind of cool but at the same time, it was kind of like, huh? So I got caught unawares by that one. It was just one of those weird situations.
I'm always looking at the formatting of the books that I have going on, deciding what really needs to be there, what really doesn't need to be there. I guess I'm maturing as a writer, as a publisher.
Yeah, there's always those decisions you have to make about what goes on back there, and it's I think there's a fine line. Some folks their readers are fine with a whole bunch of crap at the end, and that's what they expect. And I think others just want the book to end. But the thing is, with ebooks, you finish it and you're just like, okay, I'm done. You don't have to go to any of the crap. You just basically you're done. And it's the same way with the trade paperback. Typically, they don't. At least Sever doesn't do this. They don't put a preview chapter of another book at the end of the trade paperback.
Because that costs them money.
It costs money to print the book. It just makes the book that much more fat. So they have to either change the price accordingly so that both of us get the good royalty. But we don't really sell that many anyway. So I don't think it's that big of a situation.
It makes better sense not to have that in there. And honestly, that's one of the reasons that, there were a number of reasons why I decided to pull the preview chapters. I just suspected that not very many people were looking at them. And since I've not heard a single person contact me and say, "Hey, what about those preview chapters?" I was probably right.
Yeah, you probably were. So this weekend, I did go to Staple in Austin. Independent
Did you pick
Media
up paper?
Expo. I'm sorry?
Did you pick up paper?
No, I did not pick up paper at Staple.
I know what you meant.
I know you know what I meant. You're just being a jerk.
Yes, I am.
So Staple had, I don't know, over 100 independent artists and writers and I guess jewelry makers, craft makers, whatever you want to call them. And as always, I've been going to this show off and on for, I guess, 5 years now. And it's a lot of fun. I don't sell all that many trade paperbacks, but it's a lot of fun. And you get to meet a lot of crazy people. A lot of cool people too. So
if you don't go to sell books, why do you go?
I go as an excuse to hang out with Robert Stickmans for a weekend and some other folks who I've met before that always go. Bram Meeham and his wife, Monica.
You just about got him in trouble there.
No shit. His wife, Monica, is always there as well. And it's just a lot of fun to go out there and meet new people and hang out. And you get to hear all sorts of things that other artists or writers are dealing with. And it's funny in a way because a lot of them are at the point I was before I wrote The Black. They're still struggling to hit that critical mass point. And that first one anyway. I mean, there's a lot of different hurdles to go through. I mean, I'm by nowhere near where I want to be as far as, sales and all that crap. Obviously, if I had to take a part-time gig, but I at least made that first hurdle. And that first hurdle is bringing interest for movie options and things like that. So I feel very, very lucky, very fortunate that I've reached that point, because I know a lot of writers have not, and they've got more books than I have, and they still haven't reached that point. So I feel pretty lucky in a lot of ways that I've gotten there. But it's just really interesting when people start asking questions, and sometimes it makes you think, how the hell did I get here?
You know what you should do at the next one of these things? You should take a video camera and go around and find some of these other authors and say, hi, I'm Paul E. Cooley with the Dead Robot Society podcast. Talk to our listeners. Tell us something. Ask questions. Get the writer look.
Yeah, maybe I will. I did. One thing that was really cool is Thomas Toe Tag Treed.
He doesn't look a thing like a toe.
He drove from San Antonio to the show to hang out with me for, like an hour and 15 minutes. And we hadn't seen each other in a long time, so it was really, really cool. It's always awesome when you get to hang out with one of your original listeners, and he was one of the original Fiendlings. In fact, without him, I don't think I would have made the impact in the Sigler community. So it was a good deal. And there were some other folks who I've met before who found me at Staple, took a chance on one of my books, and the next year came back and bought more. And they had a few words for me this time around.
What were those words?
More Garaga. And we want a sequel to Closet Treats.
Here's the answer.
Now.
Where's my money? Where's my money, bitch?
Well, I pointed to Derelict, I pointed to The Black, because, those are the most books that I have on display on the rack. And I was like, hey, these are making money. I got to keep writing these because they're the money makers. And when I get to the point where I'm making enough money off of previous sales and things like that, then I can go do one of these other projects.
The love projects have to go behind the eating projects.
Right. And Flames is actually probably not going to be a big seller. But the thing is, it'll be out there. And that's the most important part, is that it will be out there. I spent a whole hell of a lot of time on that book. So just getting it out the door, if it breaks even, and I know for a fact that if I narrate the audiobook, it'll sell on the audio as well. See earlier conversation before this show started. And we'll probably have to discuss that at some point, but probably not today. But the bottom line is this: it's, as I was telling Terry and the patrons before we started this part of the show, it is really cool when you get somebody to come up and who's read one of your other books from your back catalog and saying, this was awesome. Where's the rest of it? Why haven't you written more of this? And it kind of gives you that warm and fuzzy, because they can really hurt your morale when you pour your heart into something and it doesn't sell. It just doesn't sell. And there's 1,000 reasons for it. And any one of them could be my fault. Any one of them could just be the way, just because of the way the story is. But it's always good to get that affirmation from folks who have really, really enjoyed it. And then, of course, they bought more books. So other books. So that was cool. But going to these cons is always a crapshoot if you're going there for sales. And if you're going to something like this and you're not, an artist, a visual artist, or somebody who's a graphic novelist or a comic book maker, you're not going to get all that many sales. You're just not. So, walk in there expecting that kind of deal, and don't go there to make money, because it doesn't work that way. Hopefully next year I'll actually get on a panel. I'll be cognizant enough to tell Chris that, hey, I want to give a presentation on this, and then I'll get a chance. So it'll be fun. But anyway,
maybe David Wood will come down this direction and set up a booth. We can go out and hang out with him. Oh, you're about to turn David Wood down. Is that where this is going? Are you breaking up with David Wood?
I'm not breaking up with David Wood. I love David Wood. I'm thinking we try and get him here next year for Comic Palooza.
That would be fun.
Because we could like storm panels.
When is Comic Palooza?
They moved it, so I don't know. I mean, last time was before Memorial Day, so I don't know, because it used to be Memorial Day weekend, but they switched it, so it was like 2 weeks before Memorial Day weekend. It was weird. Well, we'll have to look at it. We'll have to look at it. Regardless,
I'm looking at what cons that I'm talking about getting him down here for that. I'm looking at what cons that I might want to attend next year, and I've really thought about it. And I think that if I end up paying for one con and going to it, it's going to be the SIFWA Nebula con.
I mean, Worldcon?
No, I don't.
They actually have Nebula Con?
Well, I don't know what they call it. It's what are they? They don't do the Hughes. They do the Nebula. So the SIFWA has their own conference. Last year it was in May, I think. But they put on a bunch of workshops and panels, and they've got a lot of experienced people as members of that organization in the same type of things that I write. And I remember looking at the list of things that they did last year and saying, that would have been really fun to go to. Of course, I'm the guy that went to Dragon Con in 2010 with Justin and spent the entire weekend at a workshop put on by Mike Stackpole and Aaron Alliston. So yeah, that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, you're right. It's called the Nebula Conference.
And I hear through the grapevine that Hugh Howey's data guy is going to make a presentation there this next year.
Lies and slander.
That would be fun too.
Mass autographing.
Of course, it means that I have to go to Pittsburgh. That's a negative, right?
No. I've been to Pittsburgh many times. Pittsburgh's nice. I liked it a lot.
The only I've never been to Pittsburgh, but back in the SCA, I remember that the Penzic War that they had every year, that was a big 2-week event of war and fighting. The loser got Pittsburgh.
Ow.
So I'm like, that's not very complimentary.
Ow. All right. Well, now that we've drifted off every topic that we started with, let's get into this episode where we do some Q&A.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
Mm-mm.
No. All right. Well, this episode, we took questions from y'all and we tried to answer them as best we can, or completely ignored them. So here you go. So, Terry, now that we're no longer in danger of, floating away, we can finally get to the burning questions, the questions that have been sitting in the forums for forever, not the forums, the Facebook group and on our website, that we have not addressed. These people must think we never actually looked at the comments.
Let's just start with the biggest one out there and get it out of the way first. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, Emacs or Vi. You've already derailed the show. We're on a clock here and you're derailing the show right in front of me. Right in front of me. I'm not doing it. You're doing it.
It's totally true.
Okay. So these are some of the topics that we're gonna try and address. These topics that you guys keep hitting up in the groups, and I see posts about it, as basically asking the same questions around the Q&A topic. Get it together, people. Put them all in one place. But these are some of the ones that have been out there that I keep seeing that might be kind of interesting, and we could cover in 40 minutes of time, assuming you don't derail us again, as I sit here derailing us. So let's go with this. Terry, you're the huge sci-fi guy. The huge sci-fi guy.
So you claim.
What are the most common tropes in science fiction? And should they be avoided?
I'll start with the second part of that first. No. No, they should not be avoided. You should embrace the tropes. You can make them your own. You can change them up. But if you avoid all the tropes, you won't have science fiction anymore.
Right.
Because that's
Everything's been done.
It's all been done. If you can't possibly avoid all the tropes in science fiction because you won't have anything when you're done taking it all out. So rather than worry about you're doing something that everyone else has already done, take what sounds fun to you and make it your own. Make it unique to you and just run with it. That's what you should be doing. And as far as the tropes, it depends on how you want to go. You could have the alien invasion trope. You could have the high adventure, rescue the princess trope. There is literally, sky is the limit for all the tropes. There's no possible way I can name them all in 40 minutes. And I'm not even going to try. You all know what they are.
And fantasy is just as bad. You know, there are so many people out there who they see a book that features elves and they buy it. Period. And another book about little people that are living in a fantasy area, they will buy it. It doesn't matter. It's got a magic system, they'll buy it.
Was this another Peter Dinklage thing?
I was talking about hobbits.
Oh, my bad.
The hobbit trope. I guess what I'm saying is that pertains to most of it. But I mean, the most common, yeah. Okay, warp drives, teleporters. Geez, yeah, when you talk about alien invasions, you talk about the alien possession, which is also part of invasion, wars, battles, rebellions. I mean, it goes on forever. It's the same in fantasy, and it's the same in horror. The Black Series has been pretty damn popular, and there's nothing new there, guys. There's nothing new. The only thing I did was I took and put a new spin on it. That's it. I didn't invent anything.
And you didn't even put a new spin on it. I'm sure that everything that you wrote has been done in a very similar way to the way you did it. All you did was take it and make it yours. You internalized it, put it in your voice, and threw the story out.
I shamelessly stole from Leviathan. I shamelessly stole from The Thing. I shamelessly stole from The Blob. I shamelessly stole from Alien. And I admit it, and I pay homage to those stories because I really love the shit out of them. And I don't get emails from folks saying, that's so cliche. I get emails from folks going, the moment I saw that happen, I was like, is the next part going to happen too? Because they knew exactly the scene that I stole it from. But I changed everything. I made it different. But they noticed the homages, and they're purposeful. And that's the best thing is I didn't have to think about it. It just happened that way. It was so organic. Was it a new trope? No, shit, no. It was just the way I put it together. Innovate, don't invent.
As storytellers, when we make up something, it's coming from the stew pot in the back of our minds of everything we've ever consumed. All the stories we've watched on television, everything we've read, all of those stories mixed together. And when we're looking to tell a story, we reach back to what we know and we pull out the parts that are there. The best we can hope to do is make them uniquely our own, because you can't avoid stealing from somebody. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Even if you're writing in a shared universe, just think about that for a second. You got the tropes throughout the entire universe. It's what people come for. It's what they come for. They want that space opera feel to it. You know, that's the standard thing, space opera. You got a ship. It's got a bunch of characters you get to know on it, and they go and do shit, or shit happens to them. It's very simple, but that's what everybody expects with space opera.
Embrace the tropes and run with them.
Yeah. Just do it, man. Just do it.
Don't try to mimic. Try to just take the elements and make them unique to your story, and you'll be fine.
Or mock them ceaselessly.
Or mock them ceaselessly. Absolutely.
Red shirts, anybody? Okay, so readers, listeners correcting factual mistakes. How often do you get them, and how do you deal with them?
I've had a few people send me in notes, both about typos and occasionally about things that are more serious than that. What you always do is thank them, because they've taken the time to contact you and tell you something about your work. It touched them in some way, positive or negative, enough to go ahead and reach out to you. Be grateful for that. Even if what they said is critical or nasty or whatever, thank them. Thank them for taking the time to reach out and contact you. If it's just a typo, make a change to your manuscript the next time you upload it. Boom, it's done.
If you're indie, you can do that.
If it's something more in depth, like, oh, say for the fact that you inadvertently named a ship the wrong thing at some place, you may have to rewrite a couple of little pieces to make that fit. And I've done that.
If a character dies twice, it might be a problem.
That indeed may also be a problem.
Oh shit, I'd never do that.
I wouldn't suggest going any further than something that requires a couple of sentences worth of change, because you don't want to rewrite based on what people are telling you. You're telling your story. Fix the little things as they come up, and the next time you happen to be uploading your books, upload it.
Yeah. So I got a comment. I can't remember if it was no, it had to be on my website. It was on my website. This guy wrote in and he goes, I don't want to be that guy, but if the ship had any kind of spin to it at all, it would have microgravity. And you described everything as having no gravity at all, and the way it moves is wrong, and this, that, and the other. I wrote back and I was like, well, wait a minute. If this is going on and this is going on, this is going on, would the effects be that great? Motherfucker comes back with a goddamn math equation, and he's plugged in all the fucking numbers based on how he read the book.
Goddamn physicists.
And using my stuff, and then basically gave me the answer. I was like, yeah, there'd be a lot of gravity. Wouldn't be enough to keep you down. It'd be like 1/10 of the moon's gravity. So stuff would not be moving the way you're talking about. My response was, blink.
Well, shit.
Blink. my response was, you are that guy.
So tell me, did you change anything?
Shit, no. I would have to go back and rewrite all of Derelict and Tomb, or excuse me, all of Tomb to get that right. I mean, the whole goddamn book I'd have to rewrite. So, yeah, no, that's not happening.
This is because the ship was in fact rotating?
Yeah, it is rotating, but it's rotating at pretty damn slow.
You'd be surprised how much slow rotation will actually give you.
I tried to run those numbers and gave up, but this guy just plugged, I mean, just best guesses based on some things, but he's probably right. So, and then of course, when I said, you are that guy with the exclamation point and big smiley face, he comes back in the next one and he goes, it's just a small thing. I wanted to make clear that you got this wrong, but I'm enjoying the hell out of the series and can't wait for book 3. So, I mean, not everybody is going to like lambast you. They're just going to say, hey, by the way, like in Outbreak, where I did not realize when I was talking about 40, I was talking about the caliber, but since I didn't put the period in the right place in there,
I became a different caliber Glock.
Yeah. They thought I was referring to a Glock 40, the model number, which is a completely different pistol. It doesn't fire 40 caliber. So this guy was talking to me about that. I was kind of like, good to know. Sorry, it was typographic error. I didn't mean a Glock 40. I just meant 40 caliber. I'm sorry that you know. That
or you could just stick the S and W after it because it's a 40 Smith & Wesson.
Yeah, could put that in there. But anyway, it's little stuff like that. But like Terry said,
it gets everybody.
Yeah, it gets everybody. Everybody gets it. Whenever you're doing stuff like 40 with like calibers and things like that, oh man, if you fuck it up consistently, it'll be okay. If you only fuck it up some of the time, you're going to get people calling you on it constantly.
You know, so it's only fair. You know, we're always praising David Wood, ding, 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 about, you know, all the good things he does. I think it's time to go ahead and use him as a negative example.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Okay.
And this is stuff that he's admitted to before. So it's not new.
The memes are going to just fly from the sky.
He has shot a weapon before, but he was not really familiar with Glocks when he was doing it. And so he wrote in one of his that a Glock had a safety, which it does not in the way that you have a normal safety. And So it can come out and it can get you your unfamiliarity with some aspect of something. You think you're doing great. Yeah, sometimes you make a mistake. Like when I was writing something back when cell phones were actually fairly new, I had somebody get hung up on a cell phone and had a dial tone. Yeah, because I'm so used to that. So it happens. Just roll with it, man. Just roll with it.
Yeah, just thank them, move the hell on. If you're indie and you feel like correcting it, go back and correct it, re-upload it, you're done. Or you can talk to your publisher and hope and pray or something. So yeah. Yeah, you're gonna make them. They're gonna happen. Just, you know, do your best not to let them happen. And that's about it. Or find the people in your reading circle who would know and have them vet the book. And even then you'll miss 5 of them.
It's true. Nothing you can do will make you get away from these completely. That's just
somebody will find it. Somebody will find it and go, hey, I wrote this differential equation and did your math, and wow, did you really fuck this up and this, that, and the other? And it's going to be like 99.99% of the readers never even considered that a problem and just ran on with it. But you're going to find that one person who's actually going to do the math. It's going to happen.
Meanwhile, at the NASA labs, well, God damn it, look at this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure some of the equations people have come up with in the Star Trek universe to explain how warp drives work and other shit. I'm sure that those folks had their comments immediately ripped off and reproduced as somebody's thesis.
Just remember, when somebody brings up that kind of stuff, you can go, you're not the guy that works at JPL that got yards and meters all confused and crashed the Mars mission, are you?
Oh, no. Oh, God, that's horrible. Okay, so are there any major shifts in sci-fi writing styles?
Shifts?
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand.
Okay, so maybe I'll try it this way. Let's try it this way. How are there any more? Has there been any? Are you seeing first person more often than third person now, or vice versa?
It seems like science fiction, for the most part, has been third person as opposed to first person. Crime stuff has a lot of third person, but science fiction, not so much. Not so much. It's almost always third person.
And then we'll put it another way. If it isn't third person, does it stick with one character or multiple characters?
Not always. And it doesn't really matter. It's the writer's chosen style. My only advice in that is do not ever, ever, ever use present tense and stay away from second person.
Terry's always going to say stay away from second person.
It's true.
Because then you're committing literature, just to be weird.
Do not commit literature. Don't be that guy.
Charlie Brown right now is like he's finding as many weapons as he can for the next time he comes to Houston. He'll whoop your ass.
Right now he is busy jotting down an idea to write something in second person present tense just to mess with me.
Yeah, pretty much. He'll actually put it on the comments and Terry will start vomiting. You'll see this flame war going on. Oh, Christ. I am actually interested though, how many books are, third person limited versus third person omniscient in sci-fi. I would love to know the ratio of that, just because I would like to know the same ratio for horror. I would like to know the same thing for fantasy. I think that would actually be kind of cool to look at. How many of the authors are doing it one way or another?
It seems when I'm reading it, there's not a whole lot of head hopping, but they do change characters at scene shifts sometimes. So yeah. It's not hard and fast.
But even so, does it stick with just one character? In other words, you only get that one.
I would say most science fiction does not stay with one character. Most have multiple points of view.
Okay. I can't wait to see the flame war that erupts in the comments.
over something so straightforward, there's going to be a flame war?
Oh, I don't know that it'll be a flame war. There aren't really flame wars on DRS. It's more like people just being complete trolls for being troll's sake. Bastards. But those lead to some funny stuff that makes me snort my coffee. Let's see. How do you avoid being derivative of your own work? Oh, wow.
Is that
Oh,
a
boy.
thing?
Is that a thing?
Because I am so totally derivative of my own work.
Space opera is going to be derivative because you're going to be running around with these people. And the only way to not get derivative is to break the setting up completely so that basically, but even so, all right.
That's not the question I heard. The question I heard is, how do you avoid being derivative of yourself?
Yes.
So I'm writing series. Of course I'm derivative of myself because I have to use the entire history of what I've written in the series to go ahead and feed into what comes future into the series.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that there's any of your deep sci-fi series running around in your post-apocalypse stuff?
Probably not.
You don't think so?
I'm sure somebody will read it and say, nope, you did this here. And I'll be, okay, that was subconscious. I didn't intentionally do it. That's for sure.
This is the way the story came to me.
Honestly, that's the only way I can tell a story, is the way that it comes to me. I'm a pantser. As the story appears, it gets written down and it goes on.
I'm actually really afraid of this with the black, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's been so difficult for me to get back to it, because I feel like in hindsight, the first 3 books were all the same story. And that's a very fair criticism. And the black, stuck in an oil rig, Arrival, stuck in a lab, Outbreak, stuck in a hospital. Notice a pattern there. So
I'm pretty sure the clown car you're going to use everybody stuck in the next novel is going to be really exciting.
Clown car. You mean an ice cream truck?
Could be that too.
Yeah. So I guess that's been, I think that's why I was so reluctant to write Evolution, because the way it came to me in my head was, it's the same goddamn thing, Paul. Can you please
suck it up, Buttercup? Just write the damn story.
Can you please do something?
Your
new
readers
with it?
love it. Write that damn story.
God, I just don't want to be that guy. I just don't want to be
that guy.
I don't want to be a Clyde.
You
Cussler.
are a commercial writer. Write that damn story. Does this stop Stephen King from writing the drivel he writes? And yes, I use that word intentionally. The drivel that he writes, because I just pretty much don't like Stephen King. But his stuff is usually fairly the same in the way that he tells the story, the style in which he tells the story. There are exceptions.
Yeah, there are exceptions.
There are exceptions, but in a lot of the cases, he follows the same kind of patterns as he does in other books. The details may change, but the way that he tells the story often does not.
And you can I can usually tell by the size of the book how many characters it's going to have. I said usually can tell how many characters it's going to have and how the plot's going to go. Because there's really, once you get past the first 5 or 6 chapters, you kind of have a feeling where you're going to be with these characters. And I think that's fairly consistent because you know when the things are about to fall apart. And it's the same way in every book. And it's fine. It doesn't change how the book ends or how exciting the book is. Or, you know, if you like his writing, you like his writing. Exactly. It's just the way, if it speaks to you, it speaks to you. So is Stevie being derivative of himself? Hell yes. And you know what? Does it matter? I don't think so. It would matter if he was coming out and saying, this is something brand new, something, you know, extremely novel and something I've never done before. And then it comes out and it's basically just a retelling of it. That's the problem. But I don't remember him ever saying that. If that was the case, then I would come back and say you're derivative. If it's, you know, conscious like that, I wouldn't worry about it too much. There are some things where it could get a little ridiculous, where if you're really trying to tell the same tale from you know, just, you're basically grabbing the entire plot from something you've done before and just replugging in settings and characters.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
be that person. Don't
intentionally recycle big elements of your stories, but don't be afraid of having parts of it come out anyway.
Yeah.
As part of the natural flow of storytelling.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, go look at comic books, man. They recycle the same little features here and there. And a lot of the series, each arc is almost the same. It's what happens is different, but more or less the conflicts become the same in the end. And that's just because the writers are writing for that audience. That's the way it's going to happen. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're asking that question, that means
you're
you won't be.
overthinking it.
It means you won't be if you're asking that question. So that's the way I look at it is write the story the way it comes to you and write it the way you want to write it.
There you go.
Says the author saying the same advice to himself.
Well, you know, this entire show is just you working out your issues.
No, this show has also been you being a psychoanalyst. I don't want to hear about it.
It's totally true.
Or being on the psych couch. There's a lot of questions about that.
Tell me about your manuscript.
Yeah, tell me about your main character. Does he have mommy issues? Daddy issues? Does he have issues? Do they have issues? How many arms do they
Sometimes a
have?
plot complication is just a plot complication.
Sometimes the color of the drapes is just the color of the drapes. How much detail do you put in for your character's appearance and wardrobe?
Very, very little.
Now, here's the kicker. Does it matter by genre?
Yes.
Okay. Please explain.
If you're writing romance, you've got to be a little bit more descriptive of the characters because there are certain the appearance of the characters can be a trope as well. It's not to say that they're all supermodel gorgeous, but there are romances for the BBW crowd.
Yeah.
There are romances that actual body types matter. The handsome protagonist, male protagonist is a given in that type of thing. So for romance, you have to have a little bit more description to make clear. You can't just say, what a hot guy that is. You got to actually give some examples. Why is that guy hot? You got to give enough description so that it matters.
Sorry, was just being literary in my head. Literate in my head? Nah.
That probably happens occasionally.
Do you think that also pertains to fantasy? Doesn't
for the setting?
Yeah, most epic fantasy has a lot of that though.
I think most epic fantasy goes overboard with description.
A certain guy with the initials BS comes to mind.
Considering I've only ever read half of one of his books, I really can't say. I'll get back to reading the first Mistborn book before too much longer, but I've only read the first half of it, so I don't really know. But at least back at that point, he didn't go too far overboard. Now that he's writing 500,000 word doorstops, I have no idea how much description is in there.
Oh God! Oh, so somebody should, drop us a line about that. What do you think about the fantasy stuff? Do you find that there's a ton of description about wardrobe, the kind of armor, what it was made of, what it looked like, the kind of horse they're riding, and not just how, what the horse looks like. Does the horse have a certain personality? I mean, it's
my personal opinion on that is when the details get in the way of the story going forward and slow it down, you've gone too far. You just need to go ahead and have enough description so that the readers can get some kind of mental image of what the person looks like, what the setting looks like, and just enough so that they can do that and then move on. For myself, I keep the description of characters and setting as bare bones as I possibly can. And I worried desperately when I started writing that I wasn't putting in enough description. And no one ever complained. Not once has anyone said, I just couldn't see this in my head. And that's because people fill in the details. If you give them enough hooks, they will fill in the details for you. And then it's different for each and every person. And you look brilliant because they'll say, oh, I feel this is what this looks like in my head. Man, he portrayed that so brilliantly. You didn't portray anything. They filled in the details themselves and made you look good.
The book is their movie using your script.
Right.
I mean, that's what a book is to people. It's just a movie in the mind.
I think for Princess Kelsey, I've described her height, the fact that she has blonde hair, and that's about it. I don't know that I've ever mentioned the color of her eyes. I don't know that I've really mentioned a physical body type for her other than she doesn't weigh very much because she's small. That's it. I very seldom describe what she wears as far as color. I'll say in fact, I usually don't even say what she's wearing. I just let that part be filled in. She's wearing a uniform. I may have described how the uniforms look at one time. Then I don't bother ever going back to describe them again. Just shit like that.
I described this in book 1. Why can't you get this straight?
Yeah. Says the guy that in book 4 or 5 changed the name of his ship.
Yeah.
Why can't I keep this straight?
Oh, yeah, for the exact same reason. What do you mean you need a glossary? Just go back and read the first 2 books. What's wrong with you?
For the most part, as long as you just covered the details, if you walk into a room, I've heard the rule of 3.
Yeah.
Describe 3 important things about the room and move on.
Unless there's something very specific in that room that you want them to remember.
Exactly so.
That's when if you see me go overboard on description, it's because I want to make sure that you saw that.
Or he wants you to go ahead and think that's going to be important later on so he can ignore it, and you'll just be like, what happened to that thing?
I have not knowingly done that yet. I have not knowingly done that, and no one has ever brought that to my attention, but it will happen at some point. But there are some times where I bring you to that point where you think, oh, shit, I saw where this was going, and then I take a left turn. And that's part of the fun of being a thriller writer, is being able to do that shit, because you get there and you're just like, what the fuck? And then you go on, and then suddenly I'll call attention back to this detail. And that is there. But I want to make sure you don't feel like I buried it. I don't want to bury it. I want it to be there in your mind, because it's so much more fun to think that when you get to that point of left turn, you're not sitting there going, did he cover this, or did he just, like, Deus Ex Machina us? I don't want you asking that question. I want you to go, oh, fuck. He told us this was going to happen right here. So, I mean, that's the kind of the joy of the storytelling too, is when your brain just kind of works on that. So if I think I do it subconsciously now. So if you find me drawing that much attention to the description, there's a reason for it. There's something coming. So, and that's what thriller suspense folks, I think, expect. And I love those stories where they show you what's going to happen, and you just completely, it was there in the back of your mind, and when it finally goes off, it's perfect, because it does exactly what you want to do, and not necessarily the way they thought it was going to get done. So there we go. Blah, blah, blah.
We've got time for one more question, probably.
Okay. Ooh, finest fictional world. What are your what do you consider the finest fictional worlds, languages, and religions?
The question is almost meaningless to me.
It's opinion. What is your what is your favorite fictional world?
That's a tough one to answer, because I have different worlds that I like for different reasons. If I'm reading post-apocalyptic stuff, my desires will be different than what I'm doing with science fiction. And even in science fiction, if I'm looking for big grand stories, it's going to be a David Weber novel. If I'm looking at interesting stuff, Starship's Mage, the universe that Glenn Weber has done, is really interesting stuff. That's a question that is not easily answered. And I'm not going to try to get any more specific than that, because I can't.
God. Yeah, I'm stuck in the same hell. It's just like I can't say I have a favorite movie. I can't say I have a favorite song. I can't say I even have a favorite color. It just depends. It depends on what's going on. I have not found, for instance, that one band where I say, I have friends who, no matter what, it's always the Beatles or it's U2. It doesn't matter what the hell's going on. It's always going to be those two things. And they're complete nutcases. I am that way about a lot of things. And so, I mean, I have 4 or 5 industrial bands I follow incessantly, and I can't not tell you which one is the best, because it all depends by album. It depends on what they were trying to accomplish. It depends on this, that, and the other, and whether or not there are enough songs on there that catch me. And not every band's going to have that, but I love the artists themselves and what they do.
As consumers of fiction, we're kind of omnivores.
Yeah,
within the grades of stuff that we like, the genres that we like, we're going to consume a whole bunch of stuff, and each of it's going to have pluses and minuses. And
this is a Star Trek, Star Wars conversation. Oh, it absolutely is. This is really what it comes down. If I come out and say Star Trek is better than Star Wars, without explaining to you the 50 billion reasons why, and you'll stop reading after number 3 because you disagree with it, it just doesn't really accomplish anything.
Or maybe a better analogy would be people asking, so which captain in Star Trek do you like the best? You're going to get all kinds of answers, and they're all going to be valid in some way or another, and it's all going to be individual.
And then you're going to get into TOS versus TNG versus DS9.
Exactly so.
I mean, good
so
Christ.
There's no easy way to answer that question.
Ugh.
We've got time for one more.
Ugh. Now, is there a favorite science? Is there a favorite fictional language that you have?
No. I don't know that I pay much attention to fictional languages since I only speak English.
I would have to say I do have one on this, and I'm hoping we can get him on the show in a few weeks, is Robert Stickman's and Varsh, because it's the first time that anyone has from the ground up designed glyphs like this and vocabulary and everything else by themselves. I mean, Klingon, for instance, I think had hundreds of people working on that to put that fictional language together.
What about Tolkien, though? He designed the Elvish by himself.
Sure, he designed Elvish by himself, but he's a freaking hack. Screw him. Robert has gone so far as to make typography, to make the fonts for how the language works. This is stuff he's done all by all on his own, and done it with, very much forethought of how it worked into his worlds. And it's just really, really cool. And of course I know him, so it doesn't hurt, but I've seen how much work he's put into this, and then do some of the lectures he's given. And he's just amazing that one person could keep all that in their head. It was just really, really cool. Screw Tolkien.
Bring us in, man. Wrap us up. We've got to bring it to a close.
One last one. Favorite religion in fiction? I
don't have one.
I don't either.
I honestly can't say that I've paid any attention to any of the fictional religions.
Yeah. Nah. Not going to go there. Well, if you have comments or questions or complaints about what we talked about today with answering these questions, how we answered them and everything else, and how much we rambled trying to answer them, you can leave an email for us at show@DevRobotSociety. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley, or you can join the listeners of Dev Robot Society podcast Facebook group and join all the crazy there, and where we took the majority of these questions from. And we have to thank our wonderful host, Podhoster. He keeps all 400 billion episodes of the DRS available for your listening pleasure. You can check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/DRS podcast, where we put every one of these episodes up there at the same time they're dropped on the podcast. And we would be further remiss, and actually in deep doo-doo, if we didn't get a shout out to our $10 and up patrons. who are Drew Bernardi, Robert Slade, John Kilgallen, Chris Winder, Isabel Cushy, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, Jonathan Zarusin, J.R. Hanley, Caleb What's a Renegade Boner Hoser James. We need to have an intervention there, Bubba. We really do. And Sue the Cat Whisperer Bayman. If you want to hear your name every week, set on this show, if you want access to live episodes, which we need to schedule, live episodes
and uncut audio from our pre-show and post-show.
Yeah, the uncut video, including the pre-show, the post-show, and everything else that we do on this crazy thing, and access to early access to podcasts, you can become a patron at patreon.com/DRS podcast. Go check it out. For as little as $1 a month, you can get in there. Really, really help us keep the show going. Have I covered everything?
I think you have.
Did I?
Mention show at deadrobotsociety.com, where you can email us with your questions and comments.
This is the second time you've done this to me, where I've rattled off the entire thing, and you have no idea that I covered that.
It's true.
What do I have to do here to get you to pay attention?
What?
On that note, we will see you next week, folks. Say goodbye, Terry.
Goodbye, Terry.
Schmuck. Bye.